Hey guys, oh, sorry. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Right, let's actually get started. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another tutorial video. This one is gonna be kind of like a second part to my previous tutorial, which was Photography 101, all about product shots. In my fourth segment, I did a little bit about how to do floating shots and like how to cut them out after in post, but it was quite quick, and I said that I would do an extended one where I go into it and kind of explain how I go about cutting out pictures and having them appear to be floating. And this is the one that you're watching today. So I won't waste too much time on this intro, but I'll take you through the steps of how I set up a shot and how I set up a product for floating. And then I'll take you into my editing process and again how to cut it out and how to have it float. So let's get right into it. If you haven't seen my previous Photography 101 video, I do highly advise it. It just shows you everything that I do when it comes to taking a product photo. But just to break it down here, it's 2 pieces of mounting board, a single light, a camera and a tripod. That's pretty much it. Now to actually go about setting up a product for floating, what I use is just a piece of metal armature, but you can use anything just to prop it up with. And then from there you go about balancing the product on top of the armature. It might take a few attempts, but you will get there in the end. And then you just take photo after photo. You might have to fiddle about with the product, especially with these filters here, because I wanted the light to cast onto them, and it wasn't quite right at the start, so I had to change a few things. I always have my camera on a 2-second timer just to reduce any shake, and then you just go about taking photo after photo, trying to get it just right, and then you're ready to go about editing. So once you've taken all your images and edited them, you're going to bring each one into Photoshop. So the best way to do that is to Control right click on your keyboard, edit in, and go to edit in Adobe Photoshop. So I'm going to do that for each one. So here we go. All the images I need. So I have my clean plate. I have my picture, which I edited for the hand, not the pouch, and then a picture where I've edited more for the pouch. With this, I brought the shadows out more so I could see more of it, and this one I made sure the hand looked more like a skin color, because when I put on the how I edit it straight away with a preset, it just looks a bit too orange, so I kind of have it look a bit more pink. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to sort out all these dust particles. Usually I wouldn't keep the dust particles, I would try to brush it off as much as possible, but I decided to keep it on there just so I could show you all the tools that I use to try and get rid of imperfections, even if you can't just brush it off, like scratches or whatever. So the best way that I have found to get rid of these sorts of particles is using content aware. And if you don't know what that is, the computer analyzes the picture and predicts what should be there. So the best way to describe that is by actually showing you how to do it. So what we do is we go over to our tool panel. We select a tool called the lasso tool. Click that. What we're going to do is draw around it, which is just by clicking your mouse and dragging and drawing around it. Then what we do on the keyboard is press backspace, and you'll get this up. And what we want to make sure is that in the contents panel, it says content aware. All we do is press OK, and it gets rid of it. And what you're going to do is just do that for each particle that you see. So circle it, backspace, enter. It's as simple as that. Also, quick tip for just dragging across your screen, press H, brings up a little hand, and you can click and drag the image around. Just a quick keyboard shortcut. If we go back, again, just circle, backspace, return. As simple as that. Another way is called the patch tool. So the same again, we're just going to circle around the particle. You're going to go over to the patch tool, make sure it's selected. What you're going to do is this way, you drag it close to it and it fills in where you dragged it to. So you could even put in the orange, but I wouldn't do that. That's not going to look good at all. So just put it opposite it and it's going to get rid of it. So that's one other way of doing that. But we're not going to do that because content aware works quite well. The final way that I would go about doing it is in the same section. It's just called the healing brush. And all you do is you press Alt on your keyboard and you're going to get a source. So you go to a source and click and you let go of Alt and then you're just going to drag and brush over it. And that does a pretty good job. But for this, content aware is pretty much the best thing to use. And you can do quite a bit and it's not really going to be a problem. So just going to go about doing all of that. Once you've done that, Command A on your keyboard, that's going to highlight the whole area. Command C and then Command V, that's going to bring it in. And make sure you copy that onto your clean plate. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is going about cutting out the product. Now, what you can do is again the lasso tool. You could go about clicking and dragging and going around the whole of the product. And then as soon as you're done, for example, just hit the backspace and you're going to see the underneath, which is the clean plate. If you go over to your layers panel, you've got these eyes and this will turn it on and off. And as soon as you see a checkered pattern underneath, it means that the picture is on a transparent layer, which means you're able to place that image on top of anything else. But for this, because it's black on a very bright background, you're actually able to go over to this icon here, which is the quick selection tool. What you do is you click and you drag it around the product. And what that does is basically what you would have to do with the lasso tool. Now, you're not going to be able to do this if the colour of the product and the background are a similar colour, because the computer can't decide which part has to be cut out. But if it's a really black product and a really bright background, this is the tool to use. And then from here, what you do is you just press the backspace on your keyboard. And there you go. It's pretty simple. And then what you do, you can see that not quite all of it got cut out, so just go to the lasso tool. Then on your keyboard, press Alt and Shift, click and drag and draw around that little piece. And then if you start to draw, it will do it freehand. And then if you don't draw freehand, just draw straight lines. You can do that just by holding Shift and Alt. Then all you do, as soon as you're close to it, just take your fingers off the keyboard, press the backspace, and it's gone. From here, what I do is I select the blur tool. And the reason why I do that is because after you've cut out your product, the edges just look a little bit too sharp, and it doesn't make the product look as authentic as it did when we took the picture. So what the blur tool does is just sort that out, especially that bit that we just cut out. So this is the area. You can kind of see the difference between what the quick selection tool did and what I did. What the blur tool does is just sorts that out. So have it around 20 point and the hardness of about 20 and the strength of 20. What you'll see very, very subtly blurs that part of the picture, and it just makes it look a bit more real. And what I do, you don't, excuse me, you don't have to do a lot. I just very quickly just click and drag around the edge. Might make the brush size a little bit bigger, and just go around the edge, just clicking and dragging. Might be hard to tell that it's actually doing anything, but trust me, it's just that extra bit of attention that will make your picture look that much greater. Final bit here. There we go. Okay. Now, although this looks good, the shadow's gone. And that's what helps to make this look like it's actually floating. So you can see there was a shadow there, but I wouldn't be able to bring that in because of all this tape. Now, I could have been a bit more careful with where I put the tape, but what I prefer to do is create the shadow. So what I do is I go over to my layers panel, click this option here, which is a new layer, plop it and have it be on top of the clean plate, but below the product. Then what I do is I go over to this tool here, click on it and choose the elliptical tool. Then I'm going to draw an ellipse, just like that. Then I'm going to go over to this tool here, which is the paint bucket tool. And I'm going to go over to the two here, which is the black and white, click it, and have the top colour be black. Then go over to the ellipse, click on the ellipse, and it will turn it black. I've now got a black ellipse. Then all I do with the cursor is go over to the edge, and you'll start to see that it turns into an arc, and that means I can rotate the arc. I'm going to put it slightly behind, hold down shift, and just stretch it out a bit more. Okay. Right, then after this, we're going to go to filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur. What that does is blur the image, as it says in the title. There we go. And there you have a pretty decent shadow, which just adds to the whole realism of the picture. So we're just going to click OK, and then I'm just able to drag that about. I think it looks pretty good there. Now all I do is I go over to this panel here, and this just allows me to have it blend a bit more into the picture. It's not always needed, but it might help just a little bit. And then what I do, I just drop the opacity to around 80%, so it's not so harsh. Then what is left to do is to cut out the hand. And this, in this particular situation, this is where the selection tool is going to do an okay job, but it's going to get really hard as soon as my skin gets closer to the colour of the background. Because when I use the selection tool, it starts to go onto the hand. And as soon as if I press backspace, it gets rid of my whole hand. That's not what we want. On this side, does a much greater job. But you'll start to see that I can only get so far before it starts to freak out. So what I do is I just go around. Whoop. I just do a bit at a time and press the backspace. Do a bit at a time and press the backspace. Whoop. Do a bit, press backspace. Now, with this technique, doing it a bit at a time, you will start to see there's a little line that it produces. I don't know why it does that, but it does. So just use the lasso tool to draw around it to take it away. Yeah, you can start to see there's a very subtle line, just draw around that. There we go. Then, because my hand starts to freak out a little bit, so we're just going to use the lasso tool to click and draw around my hand. And what I'm doing is I've got Alt-Shift pressed on my keyboard, and I'm just clicking and dragging and drawing around my hand. It does take a lot of time and you will have to get used to it, but it's worth it in the end. So, try and get as close to the hand as possible. You can go back, kind of. Just try and be as precise as possible. And then click around, join up, press the backspace. And then what I do is I click around the whole of my hand, join it up, and then I do Command-Shift-I, which inverts the selection, and then I press backspace, which gets rid of everything else. Then I get the selection tool again, and I just do the bits in between the hand. And then finally, we go back to the blur tool, and I just go around the edge of my hand and the filter. And that pretty much is how I make products appear to be floating. Well, I hope you found that tutorial helpful. In the next tutorial that we have, we're going to be talking about automotive photography and taking you through the steps that I use to take really good car shots, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. As always, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.